The romantic type you gravitate toward, the specific personality traits you seek in a partner, is rarely an inherent preference. Most of what we consider our dating personality is actually a rigid architecture of habit. Marriage and family counselors Dr. Milan and Kay Yurkovich identified 5 distinct love styles, each functioning as a subconscious survival mechanic. During childhood, the developing brain builds specific psychological infrastructure to navigate its immediate environment. If that environment is defined by hostility, unpredictability, or neglect, the brain must engineer a way to endure it. This diagram shows how that childhood engineering persists into maturity. Every adult fight, flight response, and romantic choice is driven by this survival software operating quietly in the background. In environments dominated by active threats, aggressive or chaotic parents, the brain typically secures its safety through total compliance. The first resulting architecture is the pleaser. This style develops in response to an overly protective, constantly angry, or highly critical parent. This diagram illustrates the pleaser's strategy, preemptive management. To avoid parental blow-ups, the child constantly monitors moods and gives comfort to neutralize threats. In adulthood, this hits a limit. Stressed by avoiding conflict, they can suffer a breakdown and abruptly flee the relationship. The second architecture, the victim, is the result of a chaotic, unpredictable, and violent home environment. The victim's infrastructure is built on dissociation. To stay under the radar, the child learns to hide, building an imaginary world to escape reality. As adults, calm environments trigger intense psychological anxiety as they wait for a blow-up that never comes. Both architectures require the child to erase their own presence to neutralize an overpowering force, a habit that prevents them from forming healthy boundaries as adults. When childhood is defined not by attack, but by a severe lack of protection and affection, the brain builds defensive isolation instead of compliance. This lack of security forms the controller. This architecture is a response to an environment where the child was forced to fend for themselves from a very young age. Notice the green cube's reaction. The controller develops an infrastructure of absolute sovereignty. They toughen up to block out fear and humiliation, ensuring they are never in a position of vulnerability again. In adulthood, they weaponize anger and rigidity to maintain power. They view any deviation from their preferred routine as a threat, refusing to step out of their comfort zone because vulnerability feels like a death sentence. The fourth style, the vacillator, grows from an environment of unpredictable affection, where the child's needs were never the priority. This pendulum illustrates the vacillator's core conflict, a deep fear of abandonment from inconsistent attention. Often ignored until the parent was ready, the child became too resentful to receive affection. As adults, they idealize relationships, but become dejected at the first disappointment, pulling away early. Finally, the avoider comes from a barren, unaffectionate home that values extreme self-reliance over emotional connection. This diagram shows the avoider's infrastructure of emotional suppression. When asking for comfort yielded nothing in childhood, the brain stops the request entirely. In adult relationships, they retreat into this static chamber, demanding excessive space and withdrawing from intense feelings. These 3 specific architectures serve as a permanent defense against disappointment, ensuring that, even as adults, they remain safely isolated. This leads to the ultimate psychological irony. The very mechanics that successfully kept you alive as a child are now actively starving you of intimacy as an adult. Because these patterns are built on survival infrastructure, a healthy relationship isn't found. It is built by deliberately uninstalling these blueprints. For the active threat styles, this reversal requires reclaiming the presence they once erased. Pleasers must choose the discomfort of radical honesty over the safety of silence, and victims must learn to practice forceful self-advocacy to stop the cycle of being walked over. For the defensive styles, recovery means lowering the walls that once ensured their safety. Controllers must accept the vulnerability of trust. Vacillators must slow their expectations to avoid the sabotage loop. And avoiders must learn the difficult process of opening their emotional gates. Only by exposing and dismantling these cold survival mechanics can you step out of permanent childhood defense and into a genuine adult connection. Which survival mechanic do you identify with in your own life? Share your thoughts below. If you are struggling to identify or dismantle these blueprints on your own, our sponsor BetterHelp provides access to professional counseling to help you better understand the architecture you're working with. You can find a link in the description.